triple kill, but Son of Finn, he'll deny the plant. Easy super kill. Oh my god! Son of Finn will find more!
7 seconds left, they gotta pick up the diffuser, but Tommy lines up both! Tommy with the 1v3!
Device, misses shots, he's gonna have to go for the front.
Oh,
He pushes on through! Dylan is better!
Round 2, and there's another as Tyrant is finished off, and they all line up for Bone!
Hello and welcome back to SCS. A huge shout out to Jasmine, and I believe it was Hunter earlier that was on the board. Today it has been a very hot, very sticky, very sweaty day in the UK, but the sweat just isn't over for me as it stands. Joining me is going to be Chief. How are you doing, my good friend?
Well, I'm just as hot and sweaty and sticky as you are, because here in Southern California, it's about 1,000 degrees out. So I think that's a perfect way to start off our series. It's week 5. We're returning for our final week of regular play here in SCS PDHM versus Aggro. And honestly, that motif that you keep highlighting, I think it's just going to pan out for the best of 2 today.
Yeah, I think it's just the best way to look at it. Now, looking at where we are on the stage, we're currently at the very end of the group stages, week 5, day 1. Well, this is the place where you really start to knuckle down and get those seedings onto the board. Facing that, we will be looking at the playoffs, as you can see, going over the next 3 weeks, and then that grand final at the end, what every team wants to be in, Chief. That is the name of the game. We're really approaching, I believe, let's steal something from Marvel. We're approaching the end game, something nobody else has ever said before, Chief.
I'll give you 1 out of 10 for that reference. It's low effort to say the least, but you know, our teams, they can't put low effort in. I mean, Aggro, you can make the argument, you know, leading their group B with 20 points right now. They could throw this series, lose all 6 points, and still be in a position to move into our playoffs bracket. But that's the thing. When you're sitting in first in your group, you don't want to drop down because you're going to play that lowest seed team. So you want to have, in air quotes, the easiest run in the bracket.
Yeah, and I think currently you're looking at Aggro, and they definitely want to be in that position. I don't think there's any team that wouldn't. Because you look at this, like you said, well, they're at the top at the very moment, but they can still secure those points to just put them up that little bit more. The round difference is what's really standing out to me. They have got plus 20 rounds compared to Honor, so you look at this on paper and you say, well, this should be a cut and dry game.
And also, there's a lot on the line for PDHM, their opponents, because 3rd through 5th are all essentially at the same points difference. 11 and 10, that is not a large margin. And these teams, I can guarantee through this week, are going to be switching places. You have to be on your A game. And again, the margin of error is completely gone. No mulligans this week. It's just full send.
Yeah, and that's why there's 5 weeks, Chief. You start out, you warm up, you get into the swing of things, but now's crunch time. Now you can't mess anything up. These places for the playoffs are being decided. You don't want to be left outside. As you can see, Project Neo and Supernova are at the moment. Project Neo, they're in that danger zone right now. They're begging for an aggro win at this point because, well, they've still got their games. They can look at moving forward and bumping themselves up, knocking Synthetic down, and in doing so, well, they won't have that easy run through playoffs, but at least they'll be there. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from this. There's a lot in the line for every single team in that group at the moment for that very simple reason. This is one game that could shape everything as we look at moving forward.
And that's the beauty of everything Rainbow Six Siege and SCS. Everything is going to be shifting. It's kind of like a tidal wave and an earthquake happening at the same time. But let's actually talk about our rosters and the 10 players that will be participating in this series. Aggro, on their side, they almost need no introduction. And the same thing for PDHM. All of these players have so many accolades, it's probably impossible to count.
Yeah, but when you look at the stats, they don't lie. They don't tell the whole truth, but they don't lie. When you look at this, well, you're just seeing Aggro. They've currently got that 53-32 round win-loss split. On the side of PDHM, it's much more balanced, but that's not a good thing going up against the group leaders at the moment. The round difference being -1 yet again, like I said, it's just something you can't allow to happen. Overall, the percentages are just looking better. You look at the overall rating, the average cost of each player, well, that's up by at least 12%. That's not great. That is a horrible position to be in. PDHM, this is the underdog story. This is the start of where you need to get moving.
And that's mind-blowing that we're calling PDHM an underdog, being a true Challenger League roster, and they're just a phenomenal team. They have a plethora of experience, and they're going against a team that kind of built them on their whole, well, org identity. They're a roster that's known for being aggressive, and they signed with an org called Aggro. It works out perfectly. And you know who I have to say, the refreshing new change to Aggro, the newest addition, Splash, has done a wonderful job. He had big shoes to fill when he ended up being a full-time member of Aggro, and honestly, for the play days that we've seen from him, he's been nothing but phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that's definitely there. You look at that entry, that difference of 3. Well, that doesn't look like it much, but it definitely is. Especially when you compare it to some of the other people on PDHM. You look at that, you've got 1 or 2 entries. Well, that's great and everything, but you're looking at a player who's just not afraid to fill in that role and just get to work. The KD, you're at least being traded every now and then. I think Eddie is definitely the standout player, and I think that goes for across the board. But you've got to look at these other players. These players filling in the gaps. That's what you really want to see. Now, Splash and Kicks, they've got low KDs, but that's still pretty good. Kicks is the only one on the side of Aggro with that subpar 1. Whereas PDHM, the story just isn't the same. They've got only 2 players above that 1.0 margin. I think that just says, well, PDHM, they're going to come down to that underdog story.
And Kicks, he does play thankless roles. He's always tasked with either going to flank watch or on that smoke roll. And Silence also the same way. He's forced to play, hard reach roles, and you're just not supposed to frag out. Yet he says second highest rated player in Aggro. That's an incredible stat line to have. And prompted, coming from PDHM, the primary IGL, he's also doing thankless roles. He's the one that's going to be tasked with being that primary droner, making sure his entry fraggers who get the big flashy plays that everybody wants to highlight, well, he wants to make sure they have information so they can find themselves in those YouTube clips.
Yeah, and, well, simply put, the droning, it's a thankless job, but it's so important. You're going to have that flank watch, that droning. That's something Aggro need to be doing. They need to not play into their name as much when you think about the support players. You've got to get that flank watch done, the hard work. Don't sleep on the basics. But from the looks of it, Aggro, they haven't at all. As we look at the group stages, PDHM, I think a similar story is there. They're not going to sleep on the basics. They know what they should be doing. I think the goal is very clearly in sight of them. But, well, looking at the predictions, I think overwhelmingly in favor of a tie. A lot more leaning towards Aggro than PDHM. I think only one. Jay-Z is looking for that PDHM win. And, well, I don't know. That's a pretty high percentage, the highest on that roster there of casters. But when you look at the stats, that just isn't going to add up.
I can't believe it at 24%. That's so painful to look at.
Dude, I'm at 20.
I think, Adam, you put it out perfectly. Jay-Z is the only one calling PDHM. He has the highest percentage of being correct. So maybe he's the one that's right today. But honestly, these two rosters, it's so difficult to vote against any one of them. Honestly, people like Connor are probably the smartest ones on this list voting time. Because, again, 2 phenomenal rosters. One of them probably isn't going to be playing, 110%. That's going to be Aggro. They're sitting at the top of their group. They don't need to show any of their strategies. They can probably remove all their best maps, play something that maybe they're not a little comfortable on, and just try something different. Because you can take today kind of as a pseudo scrim, a scrim that's being live streamed, but not necessarily 110% game intensity that you probably normally see out of them.
Yeah, with that role being secured, I think the main thing I can really take away from this is, well, looking at Stick with that accuracy. That's a bad place to be, in my opinion. But looking over towards the maps that we're going to be heading to, we're seeing Constant and Clubhouse taken off, Oregon and Coastline following, and Aggro, they're taking away that Coastline. So maybe just saying, we don't want to run around in gun. We want to get something with a little more meat on it. Chalet will be banned out, which is a shame. I've yet to actually cast a game of it so far, but, well, we'll get there eventually. Villa and Calf Chief. Very, very simple maps, but there is a lot behind them.
Villa, I've gone on record to say, is probably my favorite map to currently cast in Siege because there's so much nuance to this map. It comes down to the tasks of those IGLs. Where are we going to be pushing from? Are we going to be pushing in from the north side of the map through Master Bedroom? Are we going to do a linear push in through Study? If we do that, what crossfires, what cutoffs are we going to establish? Are we going to put somebody in Boar, in 90, in Zombie Window? Are we going to do a split push from underneath? Still linear through Study, but we're going to remove all that utility from underneath. There are so many ways that an IGL can prepare and bring out things that the defense isn't prepared for. And just everything that brings Villa together just makes it so fun to watch.
That's something I actually want to talk a little bit about, with the IGLs having that preparation behind them. Well, recently I've been doing quite a bit of casting in the EU, shockingly enough, as I'm from there, and well, I just saw a game that was incredibly one-sided. And the main thing for that I need to talk about was, you were seeing a team that was stalling out quite a bit. They didn't have the win in their sales that they needed. They'd face a roam extension, or they'd face the first signs of trouble, and they'd start getting locked in very early on. So this team, they'd walk into study, they wouldn't get control of that bookshelf. They wouldn't get control below. Suddenly they're getting picked apart by C4s, utility, and flanks, and everything. It's just making life hell for them. Then they go onto the defensive side. They're looking to hold them off. They do with some wasted time. But as soon as they get to that bottom floor, well, the attackers say, well, they like their strats. We've been winning our gunfights every single time. Let's just go in pantry, let's rush while they're off site and take control. That's how the game ended out, and that's something I want to see from Aggro, is just being able to read into these teams quite a bit, because I think, rather than strats, if they're trying to save those strats to the playoffs, well, I think reading into how the enemy team are playing, that's the best way to approach this. Cav Dostoevsky, though, PDHM's pick, and Aggro will be starting on the attack. I think that's something where they're saying, okay, well, it's CAF, it's one of those maps you need to know going into it. Well, let's just say run the default strats. There's not much variation to it compared to a map like Villa. There's very few ways that you can approach Cav Dostoevsky, and if you do go for one of these maybe off standard picks, well, it has to be measured, it has to be calculated. So a lot of brain work for both teams, but the question is, who's going to be able to do it, Chief?
You know, I just want to back up 1 second as we start to dive into our round. You want a real SCS example that, look at Joe from Nemesis. They were struggling on a few of their executes on Oregon. What Joe would call, he would say, all right, we're pushing in from the other side of the map. He would make the rotation almost instantly. All of his troops would follow. They would go for a big window execute and crash on the bottom side. And the defenders that they were playing were so unprepared. They're just so stuck in their ways. All the attackers, they just pushed north. They pushed south games, and boom, the bottom side is ripped open. It's nice to see teams be able to experiment with that. Habana is starting to become a May State van here on Villa, simply because she can accurately open up walls, and more importantly, she can bypass a lot of impact tricking. Let's say that you're trying to open up the gun vault of planes and games. Well, if you put a Selma charge or a thermite charge, even a pocket thermite charge, you're most likely going to get it impact tricked. They're going to either throw it through the drone hole or through the top of the wall that they opened up. Habana is going to be able to go by a 1x2 configuration, put it all the way to the right side of the wall, and you'll never find it with any type of explosive.
Yeah, and I think that's why you see Habana being banned out quite a little bit more than Ace when you come to a map like Villa. That's because, well, you look at it and you simply say, well, you want to get those heart breaches that have the range off the board. So you get them in, you use that Valkyrie that isn't being banned out by the attackers, but, well, that's going to be a false note at the moment because, well, she is taken away as is Mirror. But you get Habana and you basically say, well, they're going to try and use these C4s. You take away a heart breacher with range, and you force them to come up close to the Maverick or a Thermite. Villa, I think it's something like 80% soft floor when you look at those top two floors, and that's a huge percentage. So that's why you want that Valkyrie. That's why Valkyrie's being banned, more importantly, instead of Cade. But, like you said, Habana being taken off the board, well, that's the Habana trick coming into play, isn't it?
And even if you lose that Valkyrie, there are other operators that can fill that role. You can bring out an Echo, for example. Now, he has been nerfed and he's no longer having invisible drones, but the way we've been seeing teams use him is not just as a plant denial strategy, but as almost like an aggressive Mozzie, where Mozzie has to steal the attacker's drones. Now you have a built-in drone at the start of your prep phase, and you can help your defense that's expanding out on a roam. Since we're on Villa, we'll use a Villa example. If you put a lot of your defense up to the north on a roam, you can put an Echo drone to not only provide information, but when the attackers are starting to pressure that off-site, well, you can send one of those drunken concussion blasts down range, and now those attackers, they're not going to be as strong in that gunfight. Now you can also bring out bulletproof cameras, you can bring out the Alda wielder himself, which actually we're going to find currently in our lobby, and that's going to give you just that extra flexibility when you go for that information game.
Yeah, now something I really enjoy when I look at this is when teams decide to bring both the Elder and that Echo, because, well, you have that one that's set on site, but then you have that aggressive information game from that Echo, like you talked about. You see a lot more aggressive teams, they'll tend to opt for that, if any, so they'll look at that and basically say, well, this is going to be free as hell. Let's get this information, let's get going. Aggro, though, they will be starting on the attack, they will have to approach this aviated games. And I'm looking at this and saying, okay, well, an extension's most likely going to come out from PDHM. So, Aggro, in result, they're going to be positioning themselves over towards that trophy window side, have a player towards the master, and you start to put the claws of death into motion. In doing so, well, these roamers, they just don't feel comfortable. You do have a player inside Astro, that's going to be the Mozzie trying to deny the intel. That's one camera being taken away, but the information a player is there has now gone out. Aggro can then start their roam clear and say, well, we just can't rush in. That's a big thing they need to know. They have to go for the room clear.
Ralphie has already used one of his nitro cells. Not sure where that was sent, but nobody was connected at all by Aggro, and they're starting to clear out the northeast side of the map. Subarctic's in a position to go for the swing. He'll shoot a few bullets down range, but I said he's going to vault through that skyline, saving his life and wasting more time. Now, Aggro has to be very careful. Mozzie rotating down is an operator with a nitro cell, and a well-placed information device will be enough to send that nitro cell sky high, potentially collect a member of Aggro.
Now, what I'm very pleased to see right now is Asian's not slacking up at all, constantly thinking about this game, what PDHM can be doing. Now, they're getting information over towards 90, and in doing so, they're giving away the name of the game to Aggro, but a map like Villa, well, they already know. If they're not going through study, this is how they're going to be taking. That 90 player is going to be crucial. Granted, you've been droned out, but they knew you were going to be there anyway. They're going to have to deal with you, and you're going to have to deal with their aggression. The question is, how long can PDHM waste? They're getting rid of a lot of utility. And you do have Sad Ralphie. He's over by this study area with Subakahara. And, well, yes, they can deal with a lot of the pressure should it come towards the actual study side. But with Eddie getting information on 90, I think we're not going to see that. The first kill will be picked up by Sub. Aizen and Splash, though, are going to be answering very, very quickly before Ralphie even things up to a 3 versus 3. 45 seconds on the clock, all 3 smoke canisters on the board, and in the field as one will be detonated. And now Aggro, they're starting to slow down and take stock of what's going on.
I was waiting for the rotation from Aggro to come through. It eventually did, but the 2 players are tasked with rotating over to study lost their lives. Now, Eddie has to now re-rotate over and fill the shoes of his fallen comrades. Ralphie's also going to fill the shoes and re-find himself isolated and tucked into the corner of study, trying to waste time, and Aggro is going to spring into the bomb site. Hicks is going to end up losing that gunfight, and the Alta is going to attempt to find another one. Unable to do so, Asian forced to go against 2. He has a diffuser in his back pocket, but he has himself in a crossfire. Unable to break that down, and Ralphie will be credited with that final kill. PDHM will take round 1.
Yeah, Aggro, they're looking a little bit comfortable, maybe a bit too comfortable, because what you're seeing was they were getting control of 90, they did exactly that. They started pushing and lost a couple of players. Well, they're losing players, they're finding some refrags, but you're seeing Ralphie in that study, there's no real call until the very end that Ralphie's playing inside there. And I think that's the biggest issue. You're saying, right, there's this study player that's causing issues, we're not doing anything about it. At that point, Aggro, they start moving in very, very, well, staggered, in my opinion. You saw players moving in one at a time, suddenly Asian stacked behind that map table, and like you said, in a crossfire. Very nicely played from PDHM on the flip side, though. They were able to even out those man numbers, and were able to keep that round up. They isolated the attackers through their attack and just stalled it out bit by bit. It's very nicely done from them. Moving the trophy statue. I'm sorry, I'm tired. It's a long, hot day, like I said. But trophy statue. There's a lot about this site that has already been said, but I'm going to try and say a little bit more. We're not going there. The only thing we're going to see is, realistically, that top floor defense, because Dining Kitchen is the name of the game, and shockingly enough, a ton of C4s on the board. PDHM, well, I think this is just going to be the information denial. That multi-mute combo shut down the drones very early on the side of Aggro, and if you can do that, then you're roam gate. They have that little bit more time, because the attackers, they have to be very careful with these drones.
What's interesting to see, Surreal is now on the Mozzie roll, and Subarctic was already on the Mozzie roll. Nice to see them go back and forth, and just the flexibility of roles. And it's just designed, how is a certain player going to be holding a part of the map? Now, Adam, you talked about it's been a long day, but you're only 90 minutes into the start of your day, so that by definition can't be that long.
It's half 1 a.m.
Exactly, only 90
I've
minutes
got to
into
go
your
get
day.
my braces tightened, dude. Yeah, I gotta get up tomorrow, but Sub is already awake and is finding a kill onto Kick Silent. Very fast to open up with one without Pantry's presence. Well, Eddie, they're gonna be able to find a kill as well. Now, PDHM, their attention's focused towards the Pantry. I love this vertical angle, but Splash is just gonna find a kill without it anyway. Now we're looking at side control starting to fall. Ralphie barely spots that Yana coming through. In doing so, well, you have that little bit of information. The plant is going down, and you have those C4s. One will go out. It won't land the kill, but Ralphie will.
It's an onslaught into this bomb site. Ralphie against 3 is on so little HP, gets flanked from behind and losing his life. Aggro, their round 2 executes, just screams their entire mentality on attack. They spot the opening and the defense of PDHM. They send their drones, their clones downrange. They just fly into the bomb site, take gunfights. I mean, that is about textbook aggro as it can get. And it's beautiful to watch. They love to bring out this exact style of attack on Clubhouse, and that's just the ingenuity of aggro. They can apply their same philosophy of a round to any map that they play.
Speaking of applying that same philosophy, PDHM, they're returning to Dining Kitchen. And I think the biggest issue with this is, okay, yeah, you've just got pushed from Pantry. You can prepare for it. You can keep that in the back of your mind. But if you're returning to this site, you're going to be thinking about that. And if Aggro, if they're playing that mental game properly, well, this is when they go for a top floor clear. Because if they do that, well, PDHM, their eyes are down below. You get quick and easy control of that top floor. You start doing your vertical play. Your defenders, they start looking upwards. And granted, you still have Rafi on that pulse. But you've lost that top floor control. Romas, they've probably been shot in the head if they're on the top floor looking downwards, getting ready to rotate. And so, Aggro, they're looking... I'd peg them to pick up this round purely based on the fact that PDHM aren't trying something different just yet. Maybe hinting towards not wanting to go to that trophy statue very early on. Maybe have something in the back of their pocket for that. Whether they are, well, we'll have to wait and see.
I don't want to put numbers on this, but this is coming from either the first stage or the second stage of the NAL. The worst bomb site on this map was Trophy for a large time. Now, that's excluding Library, which is technically the best, but it had a sample size of like 3. So that really doesn't count as anything. But
let's be honest, Chief. If you're going to Library, it's because you're 100% confident you'll win.
That's true, but the thing is, I can't remember a meta where we haven't seen teams across every single region attempt Library as a primary bomb site. An incredible swing in. So Real's gonna get slaughtered on the back end of that, and Silent, he reads that perfectly. That was a double combination of information. There's a drone clearing out study as well as that hologram clone, and just that shows the power of the information game. Mav's also going to find himself in a gunfight. He's being pressured from 2 different sources, but one of those sources will remove his head and the play from the lobby.
Yes, and this is what I talked about. Aggro, they've got that very quick control. They have that trophy statue area. They just need to really take control fully. Well, Sub is currently on those Astro Stairs, has those 3 ADSs, but decided 3 players, let's just pull back. Make that 2 as Eddie's looking for another kill. Aggro, well, they're feeling quite comfortable. All 5 players alive, granted Silent has taken some damage, but now it's vertical play. Now, you just get to work and shut down these sightlines. PDHM, they're in a difficult position, looking above. As soon as the players start coming down, well, you can find a kill or 2, but your rotations are going to be locked off. Asian able to find another pixel kill, as Silent was able to start us off with, but Sub is able to just take away and start chipping away. Not to any benefit, though. Aggro, very quick to clean up with Eddie. At that point, well, Aggro just flood onto site, Chief. A very fast, a very confident take coming out from them.
And that's what Aggro's good at. They realized that their full send strategy from round 2 was no longer going to be viable. So they bring out something a little bit more traditional, starting to clear from the south side of the map, very similar to how they would execute on Trophy. But that's because they technically are executing on Trophy. It is imperative for their execute to remove the off-site pressure that is roaming somewhere upstairs. They start to apply their pressure, removing everyone that's upstairs, and now they can just continue on with a traditional way of executing on Dining Room. A phenomenal round altogether by Aggro, and Exo, who was the first casualty for PDHM, he needs to find himself maybe in a position not to be too aggressive. He was thinking, oh, I can get the free kill on the rappel, but the gunfight that he ended up taking was probably, you know, a 50-50 gunfight, and that's just too much of a risk to have for PDHM. He'd been better off sniping away a drone and an active roam and just retreating deeper back to Lamp so he could continue to fortify the north side of the map.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you on that position because, well, at that point, well, Aggro, living up to their name, they're taking the gunfights, they're not afraid to, and they've been winning them out. So, you played a little bit safer on that round. We are going to return to Aviator Games, and I think what I want to see is exactly that. As soon as PDHM start feeling that pressure towards its trophy side, well, you drop down. You make sure you have at least one player ready to take up 90, if not two. Because as soon as you get two people there, well, you play for the refresh, you're able to find just something and just keep Aggro on the back foot. You need to stymie the momentum of this team at this point because, well, it's running the risk of getting ahead of themselves. They've already got 2 rounds. That ideal 4-2 split for Villa, well, that's certainly on the cards, if not even more, if Aggro can keep this up. They've won the last 2 rounds we've seen. Can they make it a third?
This is a refreshing change from Aggro. Instead of putting all 5 of their roster count to the northeast side of the map, they've actually spawned 2 of their roster members over to the south, so they can immediately start to apply that 180 crossfire. And to make that a little bit more oppressive, they've already situated one of their attackers either over by 90 or that bore window. This is designed to apply as much crossfire as possible, so if members of PDHM start the rotation back towards the south, they're going to find themselves into a gunfight they're most likely not to be prepared for, excluding the fact if they do what they did in round 1, at least one of their members did, vaulting back down through that skylight.
You know, I'd like to see that. I'm not going to lie. But Eddie is going to be getting the information to see what he can see and just droning through. Trophy statue, that's now clear. Aggro, you have complete control. You can start moving forward. But the vertical check is coming in. That's very nice to see. PDHM have read into the fact that their top floor hold has been caught lacking quite a few times, so they're going to play for the vertical. They don't have the Valkyrie, as that has been taken away by Aggro, but what you do have are these Banshees, these Mozzie Pests. They lend a little bit of information as to where the players are, but Asian is going to be going on the roam clear. If you can find a kill here at this point with halfway in the round, the rest of Aggro, they're going to want to flood onto site, which is why Rafi is pulling back. Sub, though. Sub isn't at the moment just holding the position. Aizen looking to take this gunfight. You know they can win it. Splash got to find one. Surreal will answer back with another kill.
A good start to the round for both of these teams, but we're going to find that kills be refragged back and forth. It's all Aggro on that scoreboard. They flood it with 3, now prompted, forced to go for the remaining 4 members of Aggro. SMG-11 in hand, he spots one, able to get that down, but it's a consolation prize for him. Just kicks his moments away of putting that bomb down, but it won't even get to that doomsday hour as Ashen comes in from behind, taking that perfect frag, and PDHM are struggling to continue their foothold that they found in round 1.
Yeah, I think they're just trying the same things over and over again. And, well, I know that Aviator Games we've only seen twice, and that was the second time we've seen it, but PDHM, they're putting very little variation into the way that they're playing this. Surreal had to find, EXO, had to find quite a few kills just to keep things even at that point. They weren't able to stymie the momentum of Aggro like they did in that first round. They didn't have that constant trade coming out because of these players on the roam. Granted, you made Asian go for that roam clear. That was a very nice thing to do. You take away the Ash, you take away the utility, which is why we didn't see them until that very final kill onto prompted. But still, opening kills going in favor of Aggro. You're 3-1 now. PDHM, this is the time to step up, Chief. This is not going great for them. Let's see how they want to adjust to it. They're going to return to the site. They're going to bring a pulse. And I think that's just for that precise C4 placement on that roam game.
I never am a fan of going to bomb sites back and forth. PDHM has now done that twice, trying to experiment with something else. We're talking about how Trophy may not be the most comfortable bomb site for PDHM, but when you currently find yourselves, you know, at a slight deficit, you need to start to experiment. And the problem with PDHM is I think they do a lot of right things in their setup. It's just the way they find themselves in their bomb sites in the dying seconds of the round. They retreat almost too quickly, and then they just bury themselves in the bomb site. The attackers establish a crossfire, and they just start to compress the members of PDHM. PDHM ends up popping and losing far too many players. That's a problem with planes and games. When you're in that bomb site with 60 seconds left on the clock, attackers can dismantle you pretty easy because you just can't take every gunfight that they put you in.
Yeah, I want to see a little bit more in the way of crossfires coming out from PDHM. If they can set up a player, maybe an Astro, a player maybe on Master, you could find a early on kill, but if you put a player on Red Stairs, a player towards 90 peeking aggressively, well, maybe you could find a couple of kills, you could find a couple of entries. PDHM, like I said, they're struggling to get this on the board. They're feeling quite uncoordinated, taking the gunfights on their own. They're bringing out little things that's only going to trick aggro once. This isn't a consistent strategy to be employing. Subarctic will have Raffi nearby. They will both have those C4s in pocket, an opportunity for 2 kills, but you'll need to find 3. Aggro, at this point, I think they've safely said, well, we work together as a team, but if Subarctic is able to get at least 1 or 2, we get to see how they function with struggle. Raffi is there. They know exactly where that Ash is, but they just can't keep up at the moment. They will be chasing to try and get the C4 off as that vertical play will begin. The top floor control from Aggro is looking quite comfortable. They're feeling very safe as it stands. They're looking to move forward. They're not worrying about this bottom floor. They're just pushing towards 90. If they know only 3 players are on site as 1 C4 of Raffi will go off, well, this can't be great. Half the round is left. Aggro, they have an opportunity to just hemorrhage the defense.
I love the trigger discipline with those nitro cells and just bait them out till you see aggro truly stuck in a fixed position, whether or not they're droning. Now, the drone economy of Aggro has identified that the pressure up downstairs is still alive and active. Ralphie gets far too aggressive, losing his life, but Subarctic is there to get that refrag. So back and forth we go, and Ralphie, he did already use that nitro cell. Kicks on the flank watch. Again, we were talking about him playing thankless roles. He just sits in a corner and waits for that pressure to come back. He is a phenomenal gunner, and again, proving his worth in Salt.
Yes, now a 2 versus 4 Splash is able to make that a 2 versus 4 completely, as EXO will be taken off the board. WAF will be able to find one answer to that, but still a 2 versus 3, you need these crossfires. If you get control of Study, you have a great opportunity to shut down Aggro, but the push has been entered. That Study control isn't there, so Prompted has a lot of work to shut down the push. WAV is able to find that kill onto Kick Splash, will find WAV, so now you're just looking at Prompted sitting there, as Azen will look for the plant splash on that flank watch, that thankless roll you talked about. Well, it's about to get a lot of thanks, and he's going to be able to clean things up with Aggro getting another round on the board, Chief. PDHM, there's a lot on the cards that they can do, but they're not doing it realistically. What do you think needs to change?
They need to be more active in their defense. They're even bringing out strategies where they have nitro cell denials from underneath, but it's not providing them with the resource gain that they'd want. They're not connecting and converting those into kills because they're putting those defenders kind of on an island by themselves. Sure, they're able to get those refrags, but they're, again, just not wasting time. When you're a roamer, your job isn't necessarily to get kills. It is to just remove as much of that clock as possible. And Aggro said, you're roaming off site. Well, we're not even going to deal with that. We're just going to go for the site execute. And you are going to have to come into us. We have enough cutoff drones. We have enough flank watch to directly deal with you when that happens. And even if you are capable of getting that first kill or a refrag on us, we'll guarantee the refrag back because we're playing in such close proximity to one another. We can fill in the shoes of our fallen comrades. PDHM, on the other hand, whenever one of their opponents fall or one of their teammates falls, they can sometimes get the refrag, but not to the consistency of Aggro.
Yeah, that's something that's just really not working for them at this point. Now they are going to try that trophy statue for the first time, and I think there's a lot of similarities with their dining kitchen, but the biggest thing is they need to be able to defend that top floor. The last time we saw this setup, well, they lost the top floor very quickly. Now you are going to commit a few more players to the top floor. Raffi and Subarctic, I believe, are looking to play down below for that rotate, but Raffi has been droned out, and the name of the game will be given away. Aggro, if you're looking at that, well, I think that just screams out, go for that master side, that study side take, have a player nearby, in the case of Splash, for that master. But yeah, the meat of this round is going to be one on the roam clear, on the study take. We're not going to see Aggro giving away anything for free, I don't think. And if they do, well, there's going to be a refrag. One Gemini will be taken away from Addy, but the drone's just going to follow in.
Yeah, it's just name of resources gain. You lose one of those clones, that's just an increase to your drone economy. You can send and sacrifice one of your drones if needed. Splash on an incredible kill. Exo's going to fall. Another one of these nitro cells lost for free. Exo was electing to swing in through that split door. An interesting decision to be made, and that's just far too aggressive. We're talking about them creating strategies to waste time, but blind phase checks like that is not going to provide the results that they want.
Yes, like you said, a player has gone down, and now Aggro, they have the control to start moving in silent. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to be able to find one kill, at least, to start things off. So Arctic there, quick with an answer rotation, takes away the Ash, but Wav's going to fall, like you said. These refrags, and they're just going to keep going. Eddie's able to find 2 players, and finishes things off with Subarctic. That flank watch there, watching this bottom floor team try and come back up. Well, that's just not going to happen. Aggro, they're having more players alive at the end game, and they're just able to secure that 5-1 split. Well, this ain't looking great for PDHM, but this is Aggro's map. They did start on the attack, which, if you have a very aggressive attack, I've noticed Villa can definitely favor. But PDHM, they're going to need to put something into it a little bit more if they want to keep that position and hopefully secure that playoff spot. And for me, I think it might just be tightening down on basics. Looking at your positioning and saying, if I die, what happens? Is this a high-risk position? If I die, do they start flooding into trophy, take control of that Astro position, finding kills, and take control of the red stairs? Or, if I die, am I just another roamer? Are we hunting one player when we still have 3 left? You've got to think about that risk-reward, in my opinion. Aggro, though, they will be going on to the defense, and I want to see an aggressive roam play from them, because, well, I just want to see them live up to their name.
I love when you think about that. Just Aggro, well, they like to play aggressive, but the way Aggro plays is this controlled level of aggression. They're not like some rosters that are just screaming at you the entire time with their hair on fire. They are going to come at you quickly. They're going to apply a lot of pressure, but what they're doing is quite methodical. It's all with information. I think you'd be hard-pressed to say that Aggro is just knee-jerk reacting to the PDHM defense. Instead, I believe they're predicting, analyzing, and understanding what the defense is bringing out, and then they apply their own pressure points. They find those weaknesses and truly exploit that. And a spawn peek like that from Splash, that is just, you know, extra salt into the wound. It's another way of wasting time. He wasted maybe about 4 seconds, and PDHM was unable to rappel up to that roof. Now, 4 seconds, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but 4 seconds will evolve into more time down the road, because that's going to be a slower drone clear, which is going to convert into a slower execute. 4 seconds at the front end is going to be 20 seconds on the back end. And, you know, the previous meta, I call it utility consumption simulator, but some people called it the 20-second execute.
Yeah, like you said, that time will have a huge impact, but not what Aggro are doing right now. That controlled aggression, which definitely symbolizes a good team, in my opinion, is able to find 2 kills. I want to point out Splash, been playing a lot of that ace on the attacking half. Well, just absolutely able to step up and gun up. Will be able to find another kill, looks for another one, but at this point prompted, well, that's not that impactful of a frag. There's still 4 players on the board. You're split apart from Subarctic, and you're thinking, okay, well, we have some time. What's the play here? Do we rotate around to study, try and divide and conquer? That's, in my eyes, that's where you want to go, or you fully commit to that 90. You still have all 3 air jabs in pocket. Well, those are the only 2 options I'm really seeing myself. They might go in towards that into the aviator room. But yeah, you're exposing yourself to these smoke canisters, to that SMG-11, and looking at the position of Aggro, that controlled aggression is just summed up. Silence able to shut down Subarctic. Now they're getting in a position where you can see this refrag come up, but Asian is just going to say, no, we don't even need that, and Aggro will take match point.
Vile. What a hold over here at 90. That was a double swing, and the amount of lead that was sent down range from PDHM was terrifying, to say the least. Match point in a swift manner here on Villa. Now, this is Aggro's map pick, so there might not be too much surprise there that they're going to be a dominant force on their map pick, but we're going to be diving over to a quick technical timeout. PDHM is going to use the next 60 seconds to talk amongst themselves and start to break down why aren't they finding the foothold that they desire here on Villa. And I think it's stemming from the fact, at least from that one round on attack, was their inability to really understand what defense Aggro is bringing out, because it was technically a hybrid. It was not only a traditional hold over by trophy, but it was being coupled with nitrocell denials from dining room. And PDHM, they addressed the trophy pressure, but they never addressed that nitrocell pressure. Because when Aggro was in this exact same scenario a few rounds before, they addressed the pressure, 1 with flank drones downstairs, 2 with an active flank watch, and 3 with pressure. PDHM never completed those steps.
Yeah, what we saw from Aggro was they read into it and they said, right, how do we deal with it? And those exact 3 things, that pressure being applied to 90, well, that just said, well, the Roamers, they're pushing 90. They've just completely ignored you. You've got to start rotating back to site. Naturally, as a roamer, one of you would think, right, 5v5, you got time on the board, they're starting to look towards 90, let's go for a flank. That's exactly where Aggro started picking up their kills, but in that last round, we saw a lot of PDHM start to stall down when they got towards the players like Splash, with that C4, with that P10 Roni. In doing so, you're feeding quite a lot of kills, very little refrag potential. By the time that Splash was taken down by Prompted, like I said, it's a 2 versus 4. The Nomad is all the way down by that bike garage. What can you do realistically? I think Divide and Conquer wasn't the play. It was just get there, get together, and push 90 for that refrag. Well, Prompted just wasn't there on time. Subarctic got taken down, and by the time that Prompted was trying to get that refrag, well, Aggro, they just lived up to their name. They had 2 players watching the same angle. That's a gunfight you don't win. Controlled aggression, it's what I love to see, and like I said in that round, it's what I think definitely demonstrates a good quality team in T3 moving forward, is being able to do a lot of this aggressively, fast, coordinated with that information, and thinking in your mind, well, risk reward. If I peek this, if I go for a 4th kill here, if you're Splash, that is, will it harm the team? No, it won't realistically. The legwork of the round has already been done. You've done quite a good job. Whereas PDHM, it feels like they're throwing themselves into scenarios they can't win because they're feeling that they are losing the momentum in this game. They're wanting to keep going. They're wanting to keep the aggression. So they're saying, right, we'll just win our gunfights. We'll start pushing in onto site. But Aggro, well, they have the numbers advantage. And like I said, it comes down 2 guns looking at one angle. You don't beat that.
So we've seen planes in games be the primary bomb site for PDHM as well as Aggro. Are we going to see now Aggro take us to what's considered that tertiary bomb site, going down to dining room, and use the strategy more or less that PDHM did, expanding their resources upstairs, putting a large amount of offsite pressure there, and forcing PDHM into a scenario where they have to execute upon 2 different fronts. You have to have control of that top floor to be able to convert any pressure downstairs to go forward to a plant, whether or not you're planting over by China or by couches and jukebox. Or PDHM can use the same strategy that Aggro did in the first time that we saw dining room, send it and just rush in through pantry. It is a higher risk strategy, and actually PDHM, they are known for their mechanical skill. They're a great team at winning gunfights. Now they've been struggling against Aggro in that department, but they could do something similar to that. That point we just made is completely invalid, though, as we will not be going to the tertiary bomb site. It'll be the secondary bomb site of Trophy coming out.
And this doesn't surprise me at all. Aggro is saying, well, okay, we're on match point. We can close out right here if we want to. I think they do. They just want to get onto Kaf Dostoyevsky, get some attacks under their belt, and have quite a bit of fun with it. Key things in this lineup that I want to point out, well, that Mozzie, that Cade, that Malusi, this is all that information game. If they're trying to get that triple wall open, you're going to know about it. If they're trying to move up one of these key choke points, like the staircase, like landing, like red stairs, you will know about it. The utility is either destroyed or it's triggered. There is no in between. So Aggro, they'll have a lot of information to work off. And if they know that somebody's there, well, that's begging for a C4, begging for a kill. You've noticed it. I've noticed it, and now we're going to talk about it. Frost has been brought on the board, and that screams out about a closet hold. If PDHM weren't going to be taking control of Study, where Aggro's roam game, that's going to be brought into question, and I've got to favor Aggro looking at the performance so far. They're seeing this utility on the floor, like those barbed wires, and they're saying, this is a big problem. Asian will hear these players coming around, and you have got Silent able to find the opening kill onto PDHM. And, well, you're 25 HP, you know, as a player on the windows, but as long as Asian can come and go with some crossfire, you can get out of there. But you can't. Splash is actually going to find a TK as well, giving PDHM that player advantage. It feels weird to say it, Chief.
You know, Adam, I'm always Team Frost. I love to see her played. Is there a frost mat still in that door frame? All right, it was there temporarily, but finally shot away by PDHM. That could have been quite a dangerous frost mat to have. And there's a couple philosophies with frost. You can put it down underneath windowsills, force the attackers to vault in, shoot the floor instead of the potential defender swinging them. or you can put them in the most air quotes brain dead positions, or the positions that nobody will ever
That's
expect.
my one.
So then just try to grab, you know, some toes with it.
Yeah, like I said, that's the way I go for it. You look at it, and it's the kind of philosophy of a good sword fighter fears a bad sword fighter the most, because you have no clue what they're going to do. And I think when it looks at the Frost and the mindset where you place them, that philosophy applies. However, that Frost is currently dead. Kicks did get TK'd by Splash, and we are going to see Azen looking at him even out that man count. Will find the kill onto EXO, and in doing so, PDHM, they don't have that player advantage to really start pushing through. ADSs will be burnt on the Astro window, prompted will put those smoke canisters through, and with that will give themselves the option to move in. Asian and Splash, though, they know exactly where these players are. As long as Asian covers that flank, well, that bathroom player and that trophy player can cause a lot of issues. Asian going to cause one of their own, finding Subarctic, finding the diffuser, and now you're seeing Raffi wanting to rotate around, and now you're seeing the players split apart. Asian's able to find a third kill, and in doing so puts Aggro 1 kill away from closing out Villa. Splash is going to come around and find that final kill, and well, a very comfortable victory for Aggro.
That was a very unique crossfire that PDHM tried to use. They had an equal man count temporarily, and they just applied it from coming in from Astro, the Astro window, and then coming from Boar. Something you don't see every day, but it actually worked temporarily. You can see Aggro, they were being pressured in ways that they just weren't, well, ready for. And then Asian does what he does best, take gunfights and wins them. And sometimes when you're just in a pickle with your back against the wall as a defender, your only option is to explode back out and take those gunfights. If you put a wild animal in a cage, what is he going to do? They are going to get angry, they're going to growl, they're going to show your teeth, and then pounce on you. Aggro, they were cornered in round 8, and they definitely showed their lethality. A 7-1 against a competent roster like PDHM is an incredible outing by Aggro. I mean, after all, there is a reason why they are leading Group B.
Yeah, and I think we did definitely see a masterclass in why on that Villa game, but Kaf Dostoyevsky, that's coming up next. One thing I want to say is, in that last round, PDHM, that crossfire was beautiful in just catching Aggro off guard. The biggest issue for me was the fact that they stalled out pushing forward. Aggro, they're going to be on the attack on Kaf Dostoyevsky. A big thing on the map of Kaf, well, it comes across as one of those maps where you just have to stall out the attackers. You can't get away with it. That's the meat and bones of it, which is why I think coming into the end of the 20-second meta, well, you're seeing teams favoring Oregon. Instead of that Kaf Dostoyevsky, you're seeing Oregon, Villa, Clubhouse. Those are the ways to go forward. SAT3, T4 team. I think what we could have seen from PDHM was realizing you put them in a bad position, you start pushing forward. What you did, you gave them too much time. If you do that on Kaf Dostoyevsky, sorry, well, I feel like that's just not going to end quite well. But PDHM, they do get to start out on that defense and try and clutch back at this round difference that you can see on your screen of 6 rounds so far.
You know, looking at those highlight plays, if you just look at the operators that were alive during those rounds, when we would see Aggro going for their final execute, they would have a man advantage, but it wouldn't be by that large of a margin. They were just winning gunfights on site with maybe a +1. That is something that's unique to point out, because while we were talking about putting the defenders with their backs against the wall in planes and games, how the attackers are capable of winning those engagements, it is just unique to see somebody, an entire roster, have so much lethality to just able to bully the members of PDHM, just steal their lunch money one by one. I mean, honestly, I'm beyond impressed with the way Aggro executes this, particularly on attack. It's textbook, it's picture perfect. And you know what? We're talking about Splash entering in this team a few weeks ago. It is difficult to find yourself entering a high caliber roster. Man, he is one impressive player.
Yes, now I'm going to bring out Math Creedy just a little bit as we bring up the stats, and we see exactly why Splash has really fulfilled that role. Now, as we take a look at it, Splash, easily one of the MVPs when it comes into the frags, looking at the KD, +8. Well, that's just a huge position to be in. Aggro, they're able to win out every single round on the frags, and that doesn't really surprise me at all, Chief, because you're looking at the way that Aggro are playing. They're playing for refrags mainly. Silent definitely performed very, very well. Both won 100% costs for yourself and Splash. But Azen I want to talk about as well, constantly entering, doing a lot of the utility clearance. That's a standout performance from me as well. You're seeing Kix, well, that's the only player with a negative E, and Kix is playing that support role, that Nomad, that Smoke. 2 and 4, I still think that there was a lot of participation there from Kix that gave that success. Moving on to the side of PDHM though, Sabatic really started to step up with that Nomad and Mozzie as the favorite ops. I think that that was definitely a great position to be in. Definitely good that you can have these support players stepping up. But look at the rest, Chief. That's not a great position to be in. You're looking at 12 kills aside from Sabatic. You put Sabatic into that and you've got 18. That's a huge percentage, and PDHM, they've got to start pulling their own weight and not have Sabatic doing a lot of the legwork for them.
I want to return to the point that you're making. Again, Kix plays thankless roles. Honestly, the day that Kix starts to frag out, that means other members of Aggro aren't fragging out. And let's be honest, every member of Aggro is capable of fragging out, so Kix is just forced to take rounds where he sits and on flank watch. And one of those rounds where he got a single kill, that was a rotation up from red, that single-handedly won Aggro the round. Because if that flank came through, the aggro pressure on that Plains and Games bomb site most likely would have been now in a crossfire against them. They would have probably lost those engagements, but since Kix says, I will hold the flank, I know my job, he sits back, he relaxes, and he does his job perfectly. Everybody just wants to be, you know, that Ash main that just clicks heads, but to be a successful roster, somebody has to play support. We have seen super teams be built before in professional T1 play, and even they have to relegate one of their goated fraggers to something that isn't flashy.
Yes, and how long will it last? Well, we're going to have to wait to find out. We are going to be taking a short break before we jump to Kav Dostoyevsky to see if Aggro can close it out in such a dominant fashion we've just seen, or if PDHM can start bringing it back and start giving a couple of the casters that tie result that they wanted. However, Chief, we are going to have to wait just a little bit, so grab a snack, grab a drink, but don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Hello and welcome back to SCS Season 5. Here in Week 5, the final week of regular play, and we currently find ourselves in the middle of a best-of-2 series, PDHM versus Aggro. In map number 1, Aggro to find themselves with an incredible victory margin, a 7-1 on Villa against PDHM. It was something that shocked the world. But will we see a similar storyline moving over to Cafe? Adam will be joining me once again. McCready, my friend, welcome back.
I'm doing quite great at the moment. We're looking at Villa and we're saying, well, Aggro, they had a very confident victory. And I think a lot of that stems from very controlled aggression, very measured aggression, or systematic, if you will. That's a very key part of their playstyle, and it's going to transfer over to CAF very nicely, because you think about these checklists, you think about what you can and can't do as a player, and while CAF Dostoevsky, it's one of those very structured maps that you look at, you can't really wing it that much. Like, granted, you're an entry threat, you do what you want realistically, you know, you jump in, you shoot your gun, you shoot your utility, you clear like a Maestro camera or two off the wall, and then you get to go, basically. Well, there's probably a reason why I'm sat here casting instead of playing an SCS itself, but that's fine! Because you're looking at CAF Dostoevsky, and there is a very structured way to approach it. You think about the bans, they dictate how the game plays out so much. You think about your typical, well, say a Thatcher and a Capital ban. Granted, that's a little bit of an old method of the bans, but still, keep it in the head. You see a Cade as well. The bottom floor is where a lot of this variation will take place, whether you see the defenders roaming, whether you see them turtling and go for that lateral hold that we see, maybe the bakery or a VIP extension. That's a huge position to be in. We are going to be jumping into the game, and I want to see a lot of this defender side really just dictating how this plays out. PDHM, the ball's in your court. You can decide, go for the aggression, decide to play it safe. Honestly, it's a new map, it's a new opportunity, you can go for the tie, you can still get points. I think this is the place to do it.
And what is unique about Cafe, though, is let's look at the maps that Aggro is best at. They like maps that kind of have a large amount of real estate that's kind of expanded out. That's their best map. Villa's also a very similar laid out map. Cafe, you don't have that option of just kind of pushing in from a straight line. You have to clear up a stairwell, you have to clear down a stairwell, you have to drop in through a hatch. And maybe that's going to put a little bit extra pressure on Aggro because they're not going to be able to use the map quite as well as they would on Villa. Rolling through this map ban phase, though, Maverick and Thatcher are first casualties to be removed off the board.
Yes, now having those two operators taken away, well, you think of Bakery, you think of Red Wall. If you can keep those walls closed, well, that shuts off just that little bit of rotation ability from the attackers. They have to go through that shop, they have to go into the lines of sight that defenders can prep. The Valkyrie yet again being taken away, well, CAF Dostoevsky. How many dirty Valcamp spots do you know alone, Chief? So that's not a surprising ban to see either, because it has that multi-level utility on it. Cade is going to stay on the board, and Mirror's going to be taken away, so what I'm seeing in that is PDHM. They don't want to worry so much about that dining room area on the bottom floor. They don't want to worry so much. They can keep that red open. It's a lot easier. You can shoot the floor a little bit, get a K-Claw in there. Very difficult for the attackers to take out without actually getting inside, and then that leads into ramifications. Do you open up Freezer? Do you have that pixel player? If you do, well, then you can just set up a kill box. A lot of this site, like I said, I keep coming back to, it's dictated by the defenders. The attackers only get that ground when the defenders start to pull back. And think about it, right? Bottom floor holds, how many attacks have you seen crumple to one roamer?
Far too many, actually. I mean, it just comes down to doing your homework, knowing where the defense is playing, what strategies that they're bringing out, and you're talking about that big, grandiose roam style of strat. Well, we're going to be starting downstairs in kitchen. The whole philosophy of this bomb site is to expand out as much as possible. Not just on the first floor into VIP, but you can also expand vertically up into train room and hold the position that Aggro needs to have to be successful in that bomb site. You have to have that vertical play, shooting open all the holes, removing that triple wall, which actually part of PDHM has shot away. And hey, do you know what I see in this lobby? Prompted. Look what operator he has. He has just a smoke, which is something we see every day. But that is furry smoke, my friend.
Yeah, I think it's even more topical now that we're seeing the Rainbow's Magic event coming back in, and I was rather annoyed at this, actually, because my girlfriend, who's currently in the bed right now, well, she logged into her account, Chief, and she didn't play this event the first time, so she had that free alpha pack. She opened it and got the one headgear I wanted the whole time, and that's the Tachanka Unicorn. But enough about that. We're seeing Garage being opened up and PDHM, they're having measured aggression. They have that VIP hold. They have that freezer wall open. What's special about this is it's very difficult for vertical play to flush out that smoke. You need to push in, clear utility, and clear out ADSs. Aggro, I think they're just going to bypass it. They're going to say, let's go for the attack. Let's go for the top floor. If there's a player there, we don't need to deal with it. Exo, though, will be able to start things off, finding a kill onto Silent, taking away the diffuser and that hard breach. Splash is able to fall very quickly as Sad Rafi is able to find that kill. And, well, looking at this, PDHM, they're looking pretty comfortable. Something you can't really say that much on Villa.
This was a linear execute for Aggro, and it's just fallen apart for them in every twist and turn that they go for. It seems like they knew that they wanted to go for the swift execute. They wanted to do a linear push in the first floor, but the offsite pressure, holding deep angles, and even that VIP shield was not enough to slow anything down. Asian, though, he's going to be following up that pressure. There's 3 members of PDHM on the other side of this wall. You can hear them all lurking. He's just going to go for the swing, taking down one, not looking the corner, being finished off by that shotgun. PDHM, they have now confirmed their dominance in round 1. Vertical play is still an option since Eddie has access to that sledgehammer, but with 90 seconds left on the clock and only 2 roster members alive, it's still a difficult task.
Yeah, now the big thing for me right now, Aggro, you're looking at this and you're saying it's still winnable, sure, but PDHM, well, they've just grouped together. Safety with numbers at this point, you play for the refrags, you just work together. You can see that they are clumped together in a way that it's going to be very difficult for Aggro to dismantle. The vertical play can do it, but you've got a player on Whiskey prompted down by White Stairs. If prompted dies, Subarctic will just swing around. If you lose Rafi, well then, Sir Exo, he's nearby. He's ready to at least take up an aggressive position. Now, Rafi does want this run, but those air jabs are just going to make life that a little bit harder. Eddie, though, he's going to be coming up quite close. Oh. Will be spotting Rafi, will be cleaning it up, and actually turning this into a winnable situation. The question is, can Kicks deal with one of these 2 players? As soon as you take one, the other one's going to contest onto you. 30 seconds left. Stalling out isn't an option.
Rafi said that best perfectly, Ben, as he gets yeeted through the wall. Kicks is going to have to take these gunfights one by one. The push with the SMG-11, the full sprint, did not work out at all for Aggro. Kicks on 25 HP. Toxic Babes will be his undoing, but fortunately for him, they've all been expended. He's rotated up to the hell door, drawing a smiley face. Kicks is going to take this as a quick temporary timeout so the members of Aggro can talk amongst themselves, break things down, and he makes his smiley face even better. Happy days for Aggro, even though they lost round 1.
Yeah, the mental definitely not on the dirt for them. But a really good round coming up from PDHM. The opening kill and a follow-up. Aggro didn't have an answer. This is what you really talked about at the start. And it's Aggro. They don't have that just simple way in and then they can start ramping up the aggression. They've got to go in a very uncomfortable way. They can't control it as much. Because, well, think about it. You can have somebody holding an angle 9 times out of 10 when you enter through a window on Villa. But when it comes to dropping a hatch on Kaf Dostoyevsky, that's not it. As soon as you're in the air, you are vulnerable. You can have some angles covered, but not all of them. That's what PDHM were able to take advantage of. They also caught Aggro early. In doing so, well, the hard breach is gone. They're going to struggle to lock in that hatch open, so they're going to commit to vertical play and being able to win their ones. PDHM reacted to that by just splitting apart a little bit and keeping together in the same motion. They were holding different angles, they were holding different positions, but as soon as one died, someone was ready to take their place. The only one not falling into that category was Rafi, who pushed up, because they had that 2-player advantage. It didn't mean anything when he died. That's what I wanted to see from Villa, and I hope PDHM can keep it up. But that's 1 round on the board, Chief. We've seen Aggro pick up 7 straight after.
Exo was playing those with my pancakes in our first map of the day, and now we're going to be seeing the Rooney, an operator that fits between Jaeger and those with my pancakes because, well, they act as a way to grab utility that is currently mid-flight, acting as an ADS, but it can also act as a castle barricade, forcing attackers to either, again, burn that gate or just walk through it altogether and taking damage. So you have to be coordinated when dealing with those gates. So we're going to have to see if Aggro is prepared. Again, Aruni is one of these 2 newest defenders to be able to join the competitive pool. Chichanka, well, technically not new. His new gadget is available to play. Teams have not really found comfort bringing out Chichanka. He just isn't as powerful as everyone thought he would. Sure, he has a ton of time denial built into his gadget, but it's hard to actually find that landing and the appropriate place. More often than not, do people just send all of his fire grenades downrange.
Yeah, so Asian will be looking down to those white stairs because that flank cam being taken away. Well, that's the biggest alert you can possibly have as an attacker. Somebody is coming to get aggressive. Sada will drop down into that red stairs, start opening up that red wall. In doing so, you're giving yourself that freedom of movement. You're able to move into Piano, start dealing with Pixel on its own, which Asian's about to do exactly, but nobody's playing there. What you've got to deal with is something far, far greater. You take away the Aruni, well, you just alert Subartic of where you are. You alert Subartic of where you are, well, now they know if they swing that shotgun, that's essentially a free kill. The longer you stay alive, the harder it is to clear out and the more powerful the position. Frieza will start to get opened up, so some sight lines are on the board for Aggro, but no kills. Not that much map control. They still have a very tentative hold of Piano as it stands. Hazen looking to capitalize upon that and close down this gap in this Frieza position. But EXO, well, that's just a sightline that's going to take a lot of work to flush out. Hazen has to expose to get that line of sight and get that taken down, but it's EXO who'll be doing exactly that. Being taken off the board, the C4 gone, that Orge 3 taken away, and now PDHM a player down.
Kicks allowed to go away from flank watch, taking a gun up position, but immediately refragged about 15 seconds late, but still within that window. There's a run out from one of the east-facing windows. Somebody is still outside, whoever took that at duel, but PDHM, they're starting to lose that roster count as WAV was the one that was tasked with that run out, forced to retreat back upstairs. The on-site pressure is going to take a lot of pressure, but Aggro, they're actually now on the chance of losing their roster count. We have an aggressive position, isolated over by Pixel. Now losing his life, Silent goes for the hunt. He hears him in washing room, and the diffuser has now been surrendered in bar back storage. And he has to take this aggressive duel. Two operators that have access to SMG 11s, and he will not be bringing his out. He's going to instead go for a plant in the middle of U-bar. He can hear the rotation into bar back storage, electing to go for the swing, but the prone angle drop shot is perfect for Aggro. They're going to find that delivery into round one and round two, and the victory for them.
Leaving nothing to chance, just saying, let's get aggressive, let's get a drop shot, let's get a kill. And Aggro, they were able to pick up a round to answer PDHM's first. Now, I expect to see PDHM want to look towards that tertiary site, but as I thought, well, they're going to go back to the same place as what we saw in Villa. I don't expect to see that much adaptation. They'll just say if this doesn't work, then we try tertiary. Because we don't have enough rounds to hemorrhage, especially not off the back of Villa with that 6-round difference. Big thing for me at that point was there wasn't that much Piano presence. What you can do, and what I've seen recently in EU, is a player in Pixel with that utility, say a Goyo or a Cade or a Wamai, for example. But then they had a Valkyrie playing that mini bar. Now, obviously, Valkyrie's banned, but you can substitute the Aruni in for it. Not that much late round utility on the board if you bring that Aruni, so why not? What we saw then was just the Aruni, as soon as Red got opened up, just playing aggression, getting the kills on the board, and just staying alive. As soon as Aggro try and deal with that by putting a player on that Piano window, on the stage window, to deal with that player, an easy sightline, well, that's when the Pixel player would come into play. You'd watch, you'd wait for anyone trying to regress and get the wide swing onto your player in minibar, and the minibar player can focus on the window. You stall out the attackers very nicely, and in doing so, you keep control of Piano. They don't get that much map control. You can stall out Aggro in a very nice way, but it's something that has to be measured. I don't think we're going to see it for that exact reason. It's definitely more of a pocket strat, but it's something I've recently seen that I really want to see. Rafi, though, will look for a spawn beacon, will look for a quick kill off of it, but nobody is going to be there, Chief.
I wanted to know if Aggro is going to do a similar lineup where they apply pressure from the eastmost window, because Aggro, they can bring out all the flank watch utility they want. They can have a Nomad, they can have a Claymore, but you're never really going to stop out a player vaulting from one of those windows. Even if you grab them with the Claymore or that Nomad air jab when their feet hit the ground, I mean, the PDHM players are so lethal, they will kill you mid-air when they're falling through the ground, so your life has been forfeit. Now you can guarantee your refrag by a Claymore, but still, you've lost that crossfire pressure, and at that point, is that just too much of a liability to have somebody upside down on a rappel? What do they call it a clay pigeon in game when you kill somebody in that scenario, and that's a perfect way of putting it. You really are just a clay pigeon set out in the middle of nowhere.
Now, what we did see is PDHM wanted to play a little bit more carefully. We're seeing Rafi taking away a drone and just drop it down the hatch. You're saying you need to clear out Piano, and that's why Aggro have committed those 2 players to the window, namely Kix and Aizen. That's a little bit of time wasted, so Arctic will take some damage, but Rafi now down below has that opportunity to go clay pigeon shooting if they so desire. But Piano control has been taken. Aggro, they have control of this area, and Kix is going to be shooting a few clay pigeons of his own. Wave being taken off the board. Now, that air jab isn't going to work, actually. Air jabs are only triggered when the player hits the ground, so that is actually a free run out if PDHM are wise. I don't expect them to be, but Aggro, they're in a very nice position. Player advantage, they have Piano, they have access onto site. It's just establishing and clearing the utility to get the sightlines needed for the plan. Last round, we saw it come up very, very close to that 1v1 in the end. Can Aggro do it with a much nicer margin?
So there was an analyst, I can't remember who said this, but you're 100% right. That air jab won't actually detonate midair because your feet have to be on the ground. But the way that particular air jab works is the sound is going to propagate better at the top of the windowsill down those white stairs compared to if it was at the bottom of the windowsill. I think it just has to do with like the vector of sound travel. It doesn't make, I don't know if it makes sense from a physics standpoint, but sometimes the game engine just works in mysterious ways. Just like how Aggro was able to put this bomb down on the deck. Aggro has quite a strong roster count. It's a 5v3 post plan, and PDHM has to evolve into attackers, leaving their bunker down hidey hole. Subarctically the first one to do so, followed by Rafi, and they just are all falling one by one. And it's an elimination factor as Aggro takes round 3 with a flawless round.
Yes, now thanks to a wonderful physics lecture coming out from Chief Cass himself, I kind of want to pay him 9 grand, but what I really want to do is pay attention to Aggro's push. Yeah, well, you know, we all want these things sometimes, but what Aggro did was very nice. They found the opening kill, and they said, okay, refrags, that's the name of the game. Start pushing in, let's get a plan. What they did was they made a crossfire, they had control of a freezer swing, they had control of long, and then they had a player down below waiting for a drop for a C4 attempt. Very nicely done from them, and Aggro, they're just knowing how to deal and optimize these plus player advantages. As soon as they're getting a kill, they're saying, right, we can commit these players to these positions. We get a plant down, then we play the post plan. You see, that bathroom player, well, they have no real option. They can swing Piano and get taken down very early on because they're most likely going to pre-fire the positions given away. They can vault into the freezer, but the line of sight coming out from the sledge of Eddie is going to be covering that. Aggro, very nice post plant, very controlled, very measured. That's what I like to see, and that's what we saw in Villa. Can they take the kitchen this time? This is the only site PDHM have won so far on CAF. I want to see how Aggro are going to adapt, if at all.
Aggro, I think, needs to clear this methodical, just like you said that they did during Barn. You take that top floor, you work your way to the second floor, you start your vertical destruction. Now they're going to find themselves with a few roadblocks in their way, and it's going to be those Mozzie pests are going to be the chief of those. It's going to be difficult to have your drone economy successfully clear that top floor unless you do something that you learned from your Barn execute. Do a multi-angle push upstairs. Whether or not that's dropping drones from the skylight, or more importantly, at least from east windows. That way, all those Mozzie pests are more or less for west-facing doors. This way, you literally just drive past all those Mozzie pests, you can clear that top floor, and you never really have to apply a lot of pressure. Now, I would still like to see Aggro follow up those drones in an active manner. Sometimes we see teams just haphazardly send drones down range and never being able to capitalize on that information that they work really hard to achieve.
Yeah. Now, one key thing I do want to talk about is that east window rotate. Well, if you have a player on there with a white window, or maybe towards Cocktail, well, you have the opportunity of pushing the players the same way you can do on Console. You have your entries start pushing and putting pressure on the players like Rafi, who will just walk away uncontested. Player on Cocktail window could have potentially shut that down and got the refrag. Now, Aggro, they're going to pay in player count, but they are going to find the refrag in the form of Silent. It's going to get taken away by Rafi in a dining window. Here, well, he's going to talk about that clay pigeon yet again. Splash on the rotate will look for something, but most importantly, it's going to be looking at getting the diffuser back. Aggro to a player disadvantage, 2 players down immediately, and nobody really in the building. Aizen maybe getting a bit aggressive at the start.
Rafi, in week 1, also on Cafe, did the exact same runout and got fried from it. Here in the final week, he does the runout and gets success. There's some sweet poetry to that, and you know what? If it doesn't work the first time, you can just try and try again until it works. Because obviously, he's an aggressive player. He's a talented player, and he knows if he is going to make a runout, it is in the best interest of his team, and he is almost certain he's able to get those kills. You can never guarantee 110% that you will kill your opponent, but he's just a smart player all around. This time it worked out for him. Aggro, they're going to find themselves in the dire straight hour. It's 3v3 with sub 60 seconds left on the clock, and Aggro, they're going to need a little bit more map control if they want to be successful. It's going to start with the dealing with the Maestro over by Whiskey. That was easy.
Very easily, yeah. I mean, very nicely done. Somebody holding that flank camera, able to spot out that player, and suddenly Aggro taking that player control, definitely in a much better position than what we saw before. They have time to do the vertical play. They have now got a player advantage, and they at least were getting refrags before. Right now, they're getting information. Eddie's getting kills, as we will see EXO being taken away. Now, Rafi, we saw a run out to find a kill, but now you'll have to play on site and find 3 more. Time is ticking down. The push has to come through. I don't know why you're looking at the roof. You've got to be looking at this doorway, as Aggro are starting to make their ingress onto site. The plant will start to go down. You have got a player on double door prone. The C4 goes, doesn't find a kill. It's not going to stop that plant. It's Splash. Finding the frag, finding the kill, being taken off the ace to go onto the Zephyr, and when you look at the stats overall, well, it doesn't surprise you at all. Finding the kill of Rafi, and finding Aggro their first success attacking that bottom floor. PDHM, well, we're starting to see a repeat of Villa at this point.
You know, we shouldn't be too surprised to see Splash on that secondary entry role, because after all, he was brought on to be a secondary entry, so he's returning to his home, and even Ace on the air quote entry side can be somewhat good. Once you've expended all of your utility, you have an angle grip, you have a 2-time sight, and the AK-12, which just slaughters anything that you ADS on. I mean, it is just free, easy gun mode.
Do you want to hear a very cursed sentence?
I would love
that
to.
A friend of mine, a university mate of mine who's going into UCAN 2 this season, has said. This was a while ago, so don't quote him on this now. He loves playing Thermite because you do the job, you do the heart breach, and off you pop and just go frag. And I think Ace encapsulates that very nicely. Thankfully, though, you'll be very happy to hear my mate who said that, well, he was just given Ash and told to shut up and go, basically. He's a great aimer, so, you know, you can't blame him. But Aggro, they are going to be looking to go for a reading dining. This doesn't really surprise me. The other sites, they've borne very little fruit so far. So PDHM, they wanted to try something different. And I think their particular playstyle of taking it slowly, if need be, and being able to try and stunt down aggression of teams, well, that's going to work here. Unless Aggro decide for a Brownstairs push.
Now, Adam, why don't you just give your team or your friend Habana? Because, I mean, let's be real, that type slaughters, you have an angle grip ACOG, and it's just all around a perfect mix for chaos. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, Shaiko does it, and your friend could be that Shaiko.
High enough. Alright, I'm gonna be honest, it's like, it's fine, he doesn't watch NACs, we're good. Don't worry about it, I'll talk as much smack as I want. But, this round, let's take a look at this instead.
Slowly, Aggro is going to find themselves rappelling up to that top floor, starting to take control. It's the first time we've been seeing Reading Room, and Reading Dining is a bomb site that is a perfect hybrid of kitchen and bar, because it has elements of both of these executes. Bar execute, where you have to put a lot of resource management over into clearing out pixel as well in a cocktail. But once you've done that, you have to immediately go into kitchen mode and start to remove the ceiling away from the defenders. And then after that, you have to just start to go for your actual on-site execute. Splash is a maniac and able just to somehow win that gunfight outright in an aggressive play, but he is just the highlight player for Aggro. I mean, that's the beauty about Aggro. If one player goes silent, there are plenty more willing to fill the shoes.
I see what you did there, but silent hasn't actually been silent. But that's what I wanted to talk about. We're seeing Aggro, they're putting players in positions to catch these roamers, to catch these huge problem positions that they're going to be running into, and catch those exit frags at the very start of the round. Now, AC4 will go off, and so will EXO, as we're seeing Wev rushing back onto site at this point, as you are 2 players down, and realizing, well, What's next for Aggro? They have top floor control, they have the ability to push onto site if they want to, but you've just got to get back there. Now, Sabartic is going to be holding that hatch and has to play very carefully. With the support of Prompted, though, with the shotgun, you're not in a horrible position to do so. Kicks is going to be there with that air jab. You have that little bit of safety. You take away this utility that you can. And, well, they're going to bring Aizen around for this Maestro camera. I mean, you don't necessarily need to take it away too much, but it's just a little peace of mind. Can't leave a hot job half done, can you? Kicks, though, is going to be taken away by WAV.
The bomb site is starting to get very spicy as PDHM with a -2 man advantage is closet back to 3-on-3. Now, time is not on their side, but what is their positioning upstairs. That retake from WAV is a perfect way to be in. And look at Aggro. They now have to directly challenge this Jaeger. And he's going to sit back and relax, utilizing that clock. Splash is flirting with death. The swing in from behind, WAV will confirm that. Now stuck on 1 HP. Eddie's going to find himself in the bad end of a toxic babe. Aggro's crumbling one by one. Now relegated to nothing but just your lone primary heart breacher. Forced to take down these gunfights. WAV has rotated away. He doesn't want any business other than the clock to strike 0. PDHM will take round 5 using the clock.
God, I love it when I'm right. PDHM did an incredible job stalling out, like I said, I expected them to. And you look at it basically, well, they lost that top floor very easily. They lost Rafi quite quickly, trying to pull back. But then the utility clearance, that's when Aggro kind of stalled out. I mean, PDHM had time to bring their roamers back onto site and simply say, okay, right, this is how we're going to position ourselves. This is how we're going to deal with this push when it takes place. Hold these angles. Aggro need to come to us. That's exactly what happened, Prompted being able to find a kill, and it was just picking off players one by one. PDHM will pick up a second round on their defense, which is better than Villa, and you're on your map pick now, so you're looking to put another round on the board. Kitchen, well, it's the only other round you've won so far, so I don't blame you for going back there. Key changes I need to see coming out from PDHM, though, if they want to win this round, is being ready to deal with Aggro. And if you're going for these rooms, yet again, like what we saw Rafi doing, well, being able to just play off of each other. And don't do it if you have a player deficit. I think these are just key things. Just playing it a little bit smarter is all you need. Aggro, do more of what we saw last time, but don't lose these opening picks again. Deal with this room clearance just that little bit tighter, and then start doing your vertical play.
Now, what always concerns me, and I want to go back to a point that every single caster under the sun makes, is why you don't go to a bomb site back-to-back. Because Reading Room was a victorious bomb site for PDHM. Since they went there for the first time in round 5, they will never have access to that bomb site again, assuming we don't go into overtime. Now, if they did a 1-2-3 site rotation, they may have had the option of going to that multiple times. Aggro's going to have a swift execute so far here in round 6. They immediately start to open up every single one of these walls. Cade was on the board, and it wasn't placed anywhere close to the insertion points of Aggro. They have full control of the west side of the map, but that's about all the control that Aggro has. Just big bakery. They're going to have to push in through fatal funnels. Splash is going to try to pre-fire and attempt to find something through the wall. It's not going to work out well until Kicks finds that dual. Off-flank watch once again in a position to actually gun.
Yeah, a C4 will go out but not finding a kill, and Aggro have a lot of pieces of the puzzle that they're going to need. They have the line of sight through that prep window, they have Big Bakery opened up, they can see into sight. You can see the dead body of Exo right there, showing exactly why that line of sight is important. You can see right into the very back, and now they have Small Bakery. Now Aizen can take this gunfight whenever you want. The air jab there will also give that a little bit more safety, so WAV, well, your options are very limited. You either go above, try and get that vertical play, which Rafi tries, but is unable to do, thanks to the beautiful work of Splash, and now another player is going to try it. I do believe it is actually going to be WAV up on that top floor, trying to contest it, as Subartic's going to try and take that first kill onto Aggro, but Splash is going to find WAV. Subartic will find that kill eventually, but the plant is still going down. Prompted will be taken down, but Subartic is quick to refrag. It's a 1 versus 3.
This attacking round from Aggro is picture perfect. Subartic forced to rotate back up these wide stairs and have that all to challenge from a different vantage point. But every moment that he has upstairs in the second floor is a moment that diffuser strikes closer to 7 seconds on the clock, because that is the diffuse time after all. Now, he does have that vertical angle, but he has 7 seconds just to get back to the bomb site, including those 3 kills. It has basically been a round forfeit at this time. He's going to be trying to attempt to pad his stats, sending 80 bullets down range, unable to connect with any of them, forced to go to the bailiff, dip, potato chipping. He knows that he is pretty much forfeit everything. Round 6, a victory for Aggro, 4-2 split at the half for the attackers.
I gotta give him credit. That was pretty cheeky. He did want the kill in the very end, so he got on that Maestro cam and tried to take out the sledge on Eddie. But very nicely done from Aggro. Like you said, realistically a textbook attack. They took control of that big bakery very early on to the point where Aggro, well, PDHM, they couldn't react in the appropriate way. They couldn't move those K-claws. They had very little time to move their lines of sight to favor them. The Maestro camera couldn't deal any damage to that planter at that point when you can actually open up long angles to see the planter, which are very hard to spot from an attacker playing behind that bakery counter. The long line of sight on that small bakery, that was shut off as well, forcing Mav to go up to the top floor and take that gunfight with Splash. And well, we've talked a lot about Splash so far, so I think you don't really need to say exactly how that went down, other than looking at the scoreline. 4-2 attacking side for Aggro. Now they move to their defense. PDHM, this is the moment to step things up. This is your map.
I was hoping to see the cabin play an operator who just doesn't receive any lum, and probably for good reason. Her guns are lackluster. Her gadget is unique to say the least, having footsteps that you can't hear, as well as not be left on the floor for Jackal. And I guess her passive ability to interrogate, it's just so high risk, it's practically not worth the reward, especially in comp, right? Kat is just never going to find her interrogation, but she's a fun operator to have. And it's always funny when you just analyze an operator that just has no business ever being in a competitive aspect other than just to put smiles on the faces of the players that are usually winning this series and the viewers alike. Aggro, on their defense, they've established everything that they want. They've set up their hold, and now it's on PDHM to analyze, break it down, and attempt a successful execute.
Yes, now that they're under attack, though, you've got a wall looking at you, and right now I think that's very nicely summed up by the attackers of Aggro. Yes, there's utility, yes, there's information, but Splash is there with that first kill onto the white stairs. Yeah. Very, very aware of your back. That's very nice situational awareness. As soon as you hear that open up, or just a bullet, you pre-fire that white stairs. Suddenly, PDHM, they don't have the players to commit to have that split hold of your pixel player. And in doing so, well, you can't really contest them from the window. That's why we're seeing PDHM wanting to go for that top floor. Maybe think about an east side take. This is adaptation that I love to see because it just defines a good team.
You're right. I love to see that reading room take, but you need to have operators to help facilitate that. You usually need a Buck, and you usually need, at minimum, an Ash with their 3 breaching charges. At least the vertical ones. The problem was, you had an Ash at one point. They lost their limes early on, and, well, Ashen, he has been incredibly quiet in this series, sitting at 1-6. The primary entry, the player who just guns down anything he sees, has been struggling to do so, and that's perplexing to say the least. He's also going to find himself on the bad end of a rotate down, but not out, but in a position to rotate away from those white stairs to be rezzed back up. He was at 20 HP, but the double impact grenade, they're going to put him now down to 10.
Time is ticking down, and we are seeing these frag grenades being used in that role of the impact nade, doing a little bit of damage, but not really enough. PDHM feeling very uncomfortable, very tentative, and just able to get this kill onto Kicks just from that little bit of aggression, a little bit of overpeaking from them. Aggro, you play a tight game, you play a safe game, you don't move in too much. Now Wav can start moving up the white stairs, the C4 will follow, but Wav has already backed off and just said, I'm not dealing with that. Very nicely done from them. Exo will take some damage and will get a kill, but not on the right team, as Subarctic is able to find a kill onto Silence. So a 3 versus 2, not damaged too much. We have got a player dropping into that top floor of Subarctic, but Eddie's there to shut them down and punish. Splash is able to find another kill, as will Eddie. And Aggro, well, they'll just push onto 5-2. Very nicely done from them. Very nice adaptation to the changes made by PDHM. Both teams really impressed me so far on Kaf Dostoyevsky.
And I want to say, basically what you just said over again. Reiterate your entire statement there, because both rosters in round 7 did a phenomenal job. They're playing off their refrags. As soon as one of their roster mates would fall, they would immediately guarantee that they were within a window to confirm a kill on whether or not the original assailant or on somewhere else in the map they're applying pressure to. What put Aggro in that driver's seat, however, was their ability to be basically on the entire map at one position. They were being kind of like rats. They were being kind of like monkeys and just allowed to apply pressure at every single turn. If they found out PDHM wanted to go for an execute in reading, they would almost back away from reading room and say, here is reading. We're now going to push in from a different aspect. PDHM would get a wind that, hey, Aggro is now applying pressure from this side. We're going to put our roster count to deal with that. And back and forth they go until Aggro has the equal man advantage. They've wasted a lot of time, and they're able just to get kills on the bomb site because PDHM has spent a lot of time changing up their goal sheet. When you're in IGL, you have to identify what these threats are, but the moment you kind of start to change up those strategies every like 10 seconds, it becomes really difficult to have a coherent execute.
Yeah, now Aggro, they're going to be looking at this roaming play based upon this Mozzie pick, and combined with, well, Jaeger on the Asian. Well, simply put, you're looking at this player who's just very comfortable at the moment. You're not seeing it so much on this map, but I think that's what you hinted to. If you're seeing Kicks start to frag out, it's because the other players are really starting to step up. And, well, Asian's just having a bit of a quiet day. Well, after Villa, can you really blame him? Man's probably tired. He's had a long day, you know, he doesn't have to get his braces tightened tomorrow, but, well, some of us do. That's all I'm going to say on that. But Asian has a lot to bring to the table, has been using a utility, has been playing constantly to allow for those refrags, which you've been seeing Splash being picking up on beautifully, as well as kills in general. Now, Asian, the name of the game isn't to get a kill, it's to waste time. If you can put some pressure on, take out this drone, okay, now they know that you're Pixel, they need to apply that pressure. Rotate back. Play that timber position, play it aggressively when you know that they are in that little bottleneck. That's why you're seeing PDHM moving as a team, and Asia decided to pull back. You still have a C4, you need to keep that middle floor control more than anything. On the flip side though, PDHM, their droning needs to ramp up just that little bit more so they can keep on moving. They know the top floor's clear, they need to start looking down towards the bottom, and we'll start with this vertical destruction. Spotting out Asian, well now they say, right, there's a roam clear that needs to happen so that we can start to affect our take.
It's interesting that we have a Claymore in the back pocket of Zofia instead of one of those flat place breaching charges. It's going to give you a lot more flexibility when it comes to not only opening up new holes in flat walls, but more importantly for that vertical play. Swiss cheesing that wall will always be more effective with a flat place breaching charge because it opens up two sizes of a sledgehammer with one charge. A brilliant flick by Ralphie, and he just identified exactly where Splash is playing. A bad position and just stuck in a corner. There is nowhere for Splash to go, but he will be refragged by Eddie and that Nitro.
Yes, revenge will be swift and it will be beautiful in the form of a C4 coming out from Eddie. Now, Eddie's been a real stand-up player for me. You look at that KD on the support player, chef kiss. It's beautiful that to see that your team can back you up like that. Now, Asian has pulled back and has played for that waiting game. Because you see PDHM, they're doing the soft destruction, but Aggro still have these players on the bottom floor. PDHM, they don't feel comfortable for a push yet. They're still in that soft destruction phase. There's Maestro cameras, smoke canisters to deal with. Well, this is just going to be a whole lot of unfun when you're thinking about attacking this site as PDHM. The time is ticking down. They're going to have to start pushing into these lines of sight. The crossfires, VIP is still up. The Maestro camera giving the information to that player. And Eddie's able to find a kill before being traded out very quickly. Rafi will go for the drop now with 13 seconds. Has to push through and will be tagged up by the smoke canister. Another one will go up, but Rafi's looking to get this plant down. As Asian's able to find another kill. The Maestro camera gets taken down. Sabatic will follow. And suddenly it's all down to Rafi. The plant went down, but so will he. And Aggro will push us through to match point.
A great crash back on the bomb site for Aggro. And credit to PDHM. They realized that the writing on the wall said they had no other option for other than just attempting to put that bomb down. Subarctic, a valiant attempt to cover that planter, but being applied pressure from every single avenue, forced to go for 180-degree flicks. I mean, he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but unfortunately, No one is good enough to take a multi-angle gunfight like that. Again, a valiant attempt from PDHM, but their upstairs pressure on that third floor of Aggro really sealed the deal for that round. They wasted 60 seconds without doing a lot. Their presence upstairs alone combined so much time sink away from PDHM. When they went for that final execute, they didn't have the roster account enough to be successful and put Subarctic in a dangerous position.
You know what, Chief? I'm actually going to talk about that middle floor presence that we saw coming out from Aggro. That was it for me, because you saw that time, that's 60 seconds, but that was just further compounded, further stacked in Aggro's favor by the fact that it took so long to deal with Splash, granted, in a horrible position to play. But at that point, it was just wasting time. You realize that one of these roamers are going to fall, Asian to stay alive for the late round, and picks up another kill, as they're able to double the kill count at that point. Splash, well, he's already done quite a lot of the legwork. He has wasted time with that Jaeger, can pull down, play it safe, waste a little bit of time. And if there's two roamers, one of them's fragging and one isn't, the one you want in a bad situation is the one that can frag, because they have the opportunity a lot more in the odds favoring them to frag themselves out. PDHM will find themselves attacking that tertiary bomb site and will have to go for that top floor clear or a very, very fast rush. I'm going to lean towards that rush, because you get that ying in through those main doors, up the brown stairs, start yinging that top floor, and that reading room could probably get a plant down. The rest of the team can funnel in, they will be blind, so it's really down to Prompted to really step things up, if that is the play for PDHM. Is it, though?
I'm hoping it's a hell door rush, man. Those are so fun to watch, where you just fly literally into the bomb site the first 5 seconds of the round. Literally, you can catch just about every defending team off guard. It becomes a slaughter fest, but PDHM, they're going to be sensible. They're not going to just YOLO into the bomb site. As much as fun as that would be, they're going to treat this as a live match nonetheless, clearing out as much of the map control as possible. Silent on the built-in wall hacks of his counter trait, using that pulse cardiac sensor perfectly, allows him to go for a swift run out, and he will collect that flank watch of Subarctic. Such a crucial member of the roster falling, and more members of PDHM are down but not out. A 2v5, and we've barely even hit 65 seconds on the clock, now converted into a 1v5. A dangerous position for PDHM to be in, and it's not looking good for the boys over in black and...
Dude, it's gonna happen. I'm seeing this happening. Now they have that flank camera there. They know there's a player on big window, on piano window. So Prompted is left with one option. That is to step it up. We didn't see a hell door rush, but we are going to most likely see that dining push. Prompted will repel in, flashing the player above. Finds the counter silent, as now has site control. Aggro, they definitely want to win. I don't think they've been resting on their laurels, and Splash is able to pick up a third kill. You know what, Prompted? You know what? You've got the round in my heart, even if you didn't get it there. That was just saying, I'm going to do what needs to be done. Let's get in that window. Let's get Flash out that top floor player so that they can't jump out behind me. Silent got aggressive and paid the price. Now, a big thing for me from Aggro was they were running more of the default strats, Chief, but they were still excelling. They were still being able to make really strong advantages when it came to this and capitalize upon them, most importantly. Also, I want to say that Pulse coming in, huge play, huge information. Splash wouldn't have got a lot of those kills if it wasn't for Silent with that cardiac sensor.
Can I just say, I signed up to cast Rainbow Six Siege, not a horror game. That Pulse flying out the window gave me a heart attack. I wasn't ready for it. I know I'm a boomer and all, but man, that was so not prepared for it. I like to think that I can usually see the plays develop, and it doesn't surprise me that there's a member of Aggro that's going to fly out that window, but man, it just caught me so far off guard. A great play, and honestly, this entire series, while it was a swift end to PDHM, they still played well, and honestly, a series that I end the cast with a smile on my face. And at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing to have. If we're having fun, hopefully that means the players are having fun, because hopefully they're playing a game that they love, and that jump out there, oh, it's just so fun to see.
I mean, yeah, you said that you can normally see the plays coming out, but, well, that one I just didn't know. As soon as we saw him saying, all right, I'm going to go in, Well, then Silent came out the window, and honestly, incredible reactions there. But Aggro are going to take the round and take the game, the series. They will secure those points and secure that position at the top of their group for now. We do still have 2 Playdays yet to come, and honestly, overall 3 rounds for PDHM, so a lot for them to take away. Currently, they have that opportunity to qualify for the playoffs, but a lot of things need to go their way, unfortunately, as it may seem. If they are able to qualify, though, well, they have VODs, they have opportunities to improve, a lot of things to tighten up, and, well, honestly, I tend to enjoy the improvement and watching the development of a team throughout League and playoff and a season in general, a lot more than I like seeing these dominant teams winning out.
I mean, Froshi, the coach, is so good. I mean, PDHM success is stemming from his just brilliant play, but you're right, PDHM moving forward, if they make it to qualifiers, or that playoff bracket, that's a dangerous place to be. They're going to be one of those lower rung seeds, but they're capable of coming back. Aggro, on the other hand, they will confirm their dominance. There is no question that they will be the leaders of Group B. Looking at our map 2 statistics, and Splash, again, the new pickup for Aggro. How is he so good? 14-4? What did they pay him? How is he capable of doing this? No, he doesn't have 100% cost. I guess there's one bad thing to that round, unlike he did in our previous map, but he's just still just too good.
I've got to ask, instead of what are they paying him, what are they feeding him at this point? This is the second round that double digits have come through, and Splash has been that MVP like you said. Whoever Aggro said, yeah, we'll pick up this dude, well, that person's getting a pay rise. Splash definitely giving you a lot of bang for your buck, being able to put that entry on, that 1.8 rating. Well, that's just a great position to be in. Now, what we typically do see is there's only one player on the winning side with that sub 1.0 KD. That's going to be Asian. Bit of a quiet game, realistically, but when you take in the overall stats of this series, well, you can't really blame him. Splash just started stepping up. Eddie wanted to join in a little bit, and so did the rest of Aggro. So very nicely played for them. I'm very impressed, and we've already seen that all the players on here can frag out, so it doesn't really matter if you're seeing one of them having a weaker game. On the side of PDHM, though, there is, like I said, a lot to take away. Most importantly, this entry. You're looking at Rafi being able to put 2 and 2 together to make 4. Realistically, though, that's not a great position to be in when you look at one game. You're looking at your entry going 2 and 2. That's it. But when you look at overall at the stats, well, the cost, that's looking a lot more favorable for Aggro. Everything across the board basically says, well, they're looking very strong going into the playoffs. They've got the plans, they've got overall high costs. Look at those entry KDs and the KDs in general over this series, Chief. And then we're also looking at KPR.
So, Adam, would you say that Aggro is making a splash?
You know, I think I'll let you have that one.
Thank you.
I normally call people out, but I'll let you have that one.
That was the most low-effort joke I probably ever made. But I mean, look at the effort, the cost from Aggro. 88%, 3 players in their roster with that stat line. I mean, I'm almost like fangirling over the statistic page right now. And
yeah,
shout out to all of our amazing analysts who put on their work. Brave, Azul, I mean, they just put in thousands of hours into just putting all this lovely assets together so you guys can enjoy. So silent round of applause for them, because honestly, everything we do here in SCS wouldn't be, possible without our lovely support staff.
Yeah, not too long of a round of applause though. But what I do want to say is the entry KDs of Aggro looking a lot stronger than PDHM. So moving forward, well, they're going to be going into gunfights very comfortable, very happy, and well, after today, they're going to be moving into the next couple of playdays just as pleased. But that is ourselves done for the evening. Chief, is there anything you want to say before we do get into handing off?
Adam, it's always fun casting with my friend, crossing the pond today. Have fun getting your braces tightened. That sounds like a terrible thing to have happen.
I'm buying porridge afterwards.
Porridge afterwards?
Yeah.
For those people from the United States, that's like oatmeal, so porridge. I love that's the name of that. But until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay well. I'll be back with you tomorrow at the same time.
Walk on through. The M762 is going to find 3 kills, pistol in hand. It's going to be a quad in the round for Emergent.
Peeking into him. He'll take down Twist. He'll take down Defiance as well. He's going for a third and he'll get it.
triple kill to answer. And then Limbo and John will pick up some kills. But Braxton with the 4K. He's on for the
heal on Iski. What a flick. But he gets tired. As the Jaeger looks